Think back to when you were younger, playing outside, going to parks, enjoying the outdoors. National, state, and city parks that you likely played at are all public lands owned by governments for public use. Whether you were a national park family or a Disney World family, the beauty of nature can be observed and enjoyed by anyone of any age. Imagine in a few years or decades you no longer have access to these public lands, or in another case, they don't exist or look like how they used to. You may be thinking, well, why should I care? That hardly seems to affect me. This is a governmental issue that actually affects everyone a lot more than the average person seems to realize, so let's unpack it. There are about 640 million acres of federal public lands that are operated by the U.S. government that face the repercussions of changing political climates. One researcher even likened political whiplash to a bug that harms environmental and economic interests by encouraging regulatory instability. This so-called political whiplash occurs when agencies quickly reverse course on policy decisions, thus harming environmental and economic interests by making it increasingly more difficult to create stable public lands policy. Administration flip-flopping is problematic because it hinders the legitimacy of public lands policy and the trust of the government. However, the adoption of climate change scenario planning, or CCSP for short, is an effective approach to address the uncertainties revolving around planning for the changing climate. Introducing and maintaining a climate change plan for federal agencies saw benefits and clarifications regarding climate changes, with these plans helping with resource management and planning. Political whiplash occurred when the Trump administration took office, leading to an all-time high in climate planning uncertainties. Federal scientists during the Trump administration were reported in a study to have perceived losses of scientific integrity in their agencies, namely the EPA and NPS. Though the creation of the National Park Service was created with the mission to preserve nature for the enjoyment of others, the government has neglected much of it due to rapid political changes. Preventative maintenance is annual maintenance that keeps park features from deteriorating, giving the park a sort of facelift when it's looking a little rough. Even though this seems fairly reasonable to accomplish yearly, the negligence of typical maintenance eventually turns into deferred maintenance. Major rehabilitation projects fall under this category, being the culmination of small repairs that have turned into large repairs over time, resulting in a $20 billion, yes, billion, dollar backlog of maintenance projects that continues to grow. As if that wasn't enough, national parks face the cruel treatment of being treated as separate entities, rather than the singular unit known as the National Park Service. So large parks see greater funding, more staff positions that receive higher pay, and an ability to scoop up the unused money from smaller parks. Not only is there the political side to this, there is also a social and economic side. There are immense global pressures on public lands stemming from habitat-threatening human development, migration corridors that strain food supplies, farmlands, biodiversity and ecosystems, and exacerbated resource scarcity and ecosystem health. The social side, in this case portrayed by the American people, has had past social media campaigns against proposed legislation to transfer public lands under federal government to the state level. This was seen in the heated proposed sale of land right outside Grand Teton National Park, known as Kelly Parcel in Wyoming. Societal preferences showed strong opposition against turning over parks from federal to state level governments, which also indicated the united front with shared values, identities, interests, and goals that pertain to public lands. The results of this proposed sale and its subsequent cancellation shows strong support for protecting wilderness and wildlife, especially within public lands. So why is it important how the government treats public lands? Well, public lands are accessible to everyone and remain relatively untouched. They are also conserved for the people by governmental agencies, like the National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, or the Environmental Protection Agency, the big leagues of environmental protectors. Public lands also add a layer of biodiversity into the environment, or rather, they are the biodiversity and we live around them, that comes and goes in the modern world. With changing political climates, all these aspects of public lands can change at the drop of a hat. Losing public lands doesn't only harm the flora and fauna found in nature, but it chips away at the natural beauty of our world. So no matter how you grew up, whether you were an outdoorsy park family or a magically adventurous Disney family, how we treat our public lands can help or harm everyone.